sector, which my organization has helped put on in the last year and a half. And I have to say these results are live as of about an hour ago, so you all are getting a first fresh take at this data. So just to begin and talk about who NIVA is. I'm sure, I actually know for a fact there are members in the audience and at the conference today, but NIVA is the National Independent Venue Association. We are the trade association that represents thousands of independent festivals, promoters, comedy clubs, and every mom and pop venue across the country. In 2020, NIVA was responsible for securing the largest arts investment, which was $16.25 billion. People in this room helped make that happen, so if you were there, thanks. But that was so that independent stages could keep their doors open throughout the pandemic. And who's Techonomy? What's the other organization up here? Those are our partners for the economic impact study. NIVA is not an economist team. We are made up of independent promoters, so we needed a reliable partner when we were setting out to conduct our first economic impact study. Techonomy is a firm based out of Ohio. They were responsible for a number of impactful economic impact studies, like for the gaming industry. And our goal in partnering with them is just to create a really credible, reliable set of data points and economic impact, economic situation points, so that legislators and decision makers across the country could say, hey, the independent live sector, independent festivals, venues, and promoters are really making a difference, not just culturally, but economically, and in communities all across the country in every single state. So what is the study all about, the State of Live? The goal of the State of Live initially was to basically quantify all the contributions and challenges that independent, festivals, promoters, operators face on a daily basis in every single state. So anecdotally, we know we have the emotional stories as to why this work is important. We can go into a legislator's office or a decision-making office and say, don't you get that feeling when you walk into a music venue? Can't you feel why this cultural work is so important? Well, I'm not sure if you've tried to do that in a legislator's office, but it doesn't always go over super smoothly. In today's day and age, we need the data to back up emotion and to back up culture. And that is why we started this study, to shine a light on the thousands and thousands of workers across the country that are plunging toilets and are therapists for their staff and are community anchors who really are making a difference in their state's economy. Again, this study is all about advocacy. I'm hoping that the people in this room and the people that are witnessing the reports coming out today can make a change in states across the country. They can take the data and they can create actionable insights in terms of how to improve our industry. Excuse me, in terms of how to improve our industry and get a seat at the table. Moving on to the boring stuff, just super quickly. Methodology. There's 3 things I want to highlight in terms of how we conducted this study. The first is that we conducted the first national survey of all of this country's independent festivals, venues, promoters, and stages. If you filled out this study and the survey, there's a chance that I called you directly 5 million times asking you to fill this out. As you might imagine, it's difficult to get venue owners and operators, who are all competitors of one another, to disclose financial and business information to people, who maybe they don't know. So that's barrier number 1 of this study that we were able to deal with, because what we ended up doing is anonymizing every single piece of data that went into the study. As the project lead for State of Live, I could not tell you a single metric of a specific venue that filled out the study. So that anonymization really helped us with the success of State of Live. The second I'll say is that the survey was just the initial kickoff to the State of Live. We heard from hundreds and hundreds of venues. We then coupled that survey data with already pre-existing data sets that were out there. So every single venue that got a grant for the Save Our Stages Act or the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant had to disclose information that's public, it's on Google, you can see it now. Then we partnered with a number of other private organizations in the sector, like Jambase, Jamlytics, SMU Data Arts. They supplied us anonymized data to really tell a full picture of this sector's economic impact work. And then we relied on also some classic economic impacts sources like BA data, labor statistics, and Census Bureau stats. Then we used IMPLAN, which is the most widely used and respected economic impact model. And all of this was to basically create really conservative estimates. When it comes to economic impact work, you can only do these studies every few years. So the data really has to hold up, and legislators who are really into grilling people about economic impact have to see this and know that it's credible and know that it's real. And I'm happy to share that I think we reached that with what we released just an hour ago. Oop, there we go. So I want to take a moment to pause and maybe talk about the importance of economic impact work for the independent live sector. I wasn't initially a data person. I think if you're in this room, you have a connection to music, you have a connection to live performance, to comedy. All of those things aren't necessarily synonymous with numbers. But again, in today's day and age, data moves the needle. And in order to walk into rooms and get what we want, in order to say, give us that grant, give us that bid, protect us, preserve our sector, we really, really need this data. This was organically coming from our members for years. Independent venues, festivals, and promoters have been asking NIVA staff and the NIVA community and saying, hey, why does this sector have the data but we don't? Why does this person have a one-pager in a meeting but we don't? Although we're only a 4-year organization, we have it now, and we can, be well armed going into these meetings at the local, state, and federal level. Ta-da, what did we find? Okay, so in terms of the national results that came out just an hour ago, there were some really, really impressive numbers coming from independent stages, independent venues, independent festivals, independent promoters. Let's start with contribution to US GDP. In 2024, independent live entertainment stages contributed over $86 billion nationally. The people in this room and the people across the country that are just like the people in this room have an immense economic output. And I think in terms of going into legislators' offices, we can now slap them metaphorically with this information and say, hey, now you're forced to listen to us. Look at these numbers, $86.2 billion in the contribution to US GDP. $19.31 billion in terms of economic output in taxes paid. We paid $19 billion back to states, to national players, and to local players. In terms of economic output, the independent live sector basically put an output of over $153 billion. That's greater than the US gaming industry's economic output, that's greater than the US beer industry's economic output, and that is greater than the US airline industry's economic output, believe it or not. So you can go online after and compare the United States' results to other sectors. You compare North Carolina's results, South Carolina's results, whatever state you come from, and Washington, D.C., because I had to rep my own. And then I'm sure you all are looking at this glaring number on the right, which is super scary with the first time that you're seeing it. So in 2024, we found that 64% of independent stages identified themselves as not profitable. Yeah. Over 60% of independent stages across the country are struggling to keep their doors open. That is a scary number. But I'll say, a lot of us have felt that in communities across the country. We see, doors that are closing down the street. We hear of independent venues and owners struggling on a daily basis. Not only do we have that 64% number now, but we also have all this economic input data to say, okay, we're at 64%, how do we get to 20%, 10%, 5%? I'll pause and say I think we're taking questions at the end. If that's all right, I'll loop back around. So moving on to some other economic output results. Look at these employment numbers. The independent live sector supports over $900,000 employees across the country. We know anecdotally that there's a lot of people who help put on this country's shows. Box office attendants, bartenders, techs, cleaners, crews, and now we know that they're getting paid real livelihoods in some situations, $51.69 billion in wages and benefits paid to the people who put on this country's shows. I know that these are, they're numbers and they're hard to take in, but I would say take these numbers back to your community and say, wow, we are putting on livelihoods. We're really supporting our community. We're paying our workers. And even though these numbers are pretty large, the average team for every independent live stage is only 20 people. So these are small businesses with really, really big impacts. So I talked about economic impact numbers. Those are the traditional, how much money are you putting out? How much tax dollars are you contributing? What we also studied is economic situation. How are you faring as an independent owner and operator from year to year? And what factors are getting in the way of your success as a small business owner? This is a pretty large list. Again, all of this is available online. But I want to highlight a few of the top 10 operational challenges that independent live business owners highlighted. The first, and this is in order of how highly they were ranked. The first is marketing and bringing an audience. I don't think that's a surprise to the people in this room that it's tricky to get people in the doors. I want to highlight monopolies as number 5. The majority of independent live professionals are struggling and competing with not just each other, but with large concentrated power coming from the top down. That is a really important action item to take from today's presentation. We're also struggling with number 7, scalpers and predatory resale platforms. Post-COVID, professional resellers and the professional scalping industry has become intensely professionalized. While you were all trying to keep your doors open and trying to balance your books, predatory resale players basically spent that time where people weren't going to shows professionalizing their metrics, creating really nefarious illegal bots, blockers, and all sorts of tech that I can't begin to understand. So again, NIVA's working on that, but it's another pretty concerning thing that we pulled out as number 7. So these are top 10 operational challenges. Obviously, they're negative, they're challenges. But I do want to say that for the first time, we have an actual roadmap into opportunities. I encourage you to look at each 10 of these operational challenges and say, okay, here's a shared experience that independent stages across the country are struggling with. This is, 10 ideas that you all can meet on, that you can brainstorm around, and then you can create a roadmap for tackling one of these things, 2 of these things, 10 of these things maybe in my lifetime. So I encourage you all to look at these as, a mirror, a reflection on what you all are dealing with, but not necessarily new information. Okay, now to get specific into why you all are here. An hour ago, we released 50 state-by-state economic impact and situation reports, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the state of Live in North Carolina. So I don't ask you to look at this information too closely while it's up here, but I will highlight the amazing work of my colleagues and our graphic design team that worked to put 50 plus of these reports together in the last few months. If you'd like, you can take a look at stateoflive.org either now or at the end of this presentation to review some of these metrics closer. Okay, so North Carolina has a huge footprint in terms of economic data. Again, all of this is at stateoflive.org, but in terms of economic impact, independent stages in 2024 in North Carolina alone generated $2.4 billion of economic output. This is just proof that the independent live sector is not just a cultural touchstone, but instead also an economic engine all across the state of North Carolina. This economic output number reflects a number of things. This is probably the biggest number you're going to see on that report. It reflects fan spending, travel, lodging, everything from a person getting a beer at the show, a new outfit for like a Metallica, concert, whatever fans are doing to prepare for shows goes into this number as well. There's also a breakdown online about the specific numbers that go into fan lodging, shopping, entertainment. Those specific metrics are broken down for each state, including North Carolina, online. So I just want to say that this economic output number represents every single performance, from Charlotte to Raleigh to Asheville. The independent live sector sets off a chain reaction of economic ripple with every single show. Moving on to GDP, gross domestic product. I know you're probably like, what does GDP actually mean? Let's just contextualize it to other industries in North Carolina for a second. So the independent live sector, independent festivals, promoters, operators, comedy clubs, just in North Carolina contributed $1.2 billion in GDP just in 2024. That's also a big number, but it's equal to other sectors like the North Carolina craft beer industry. It's also equal to the North Carolina agricultural equipment manufacturing industry. So I know in North Carolina, I used to live here, they take beer pretty seriously and they take farmers pretty seriously. Now we have the data to take, the independent live community just as seriously as those industries. Taxes, yay, okay. The independent live sector in North Carolina contributed an immense amount to local and state taxes. $85.6 million just in 2024. This is money going back into North Carolina's public services, money going back into North Carolina schools, North Carolina parks. Every single dollar that's spent at an independent live show goes back and comes back and multiplied. Jobs, taxes, tourism, all of these metrics are incredibly great for storytelling when it comes to legislators. And I say legislators, I don't just mean senators and congressional representatives. We know that a lot of the fastest and most impactful work happens at the local level. It happens in town council meetings. It happens with tourism boards. It's happening probably a town over from here, and it's happening right now. And this data, the goal is to empower people like you to walk into those rooms with data in hand. They're stuffy, they wear suits, they're not cool like the independent live sector, I get it, but now you can talk their talk and compete with the other sectors that are vying for the dollars at the local and state level. So back to that scary number. In North Carolina, in 2024, 29% of stages identified themselves as profitable. Under 30% of North Carolina's independent stages identified themselves as profitable in 2024. Again, that's a really staggering number, and it's alarming to see that so many stages are operating at a loss. I want to pause for a second and again say that this is not just a business problem. This is not just improperly balancing your books. This is not just a marketing problem. Let's look at this as a policy problem. Why, as a sector, are we contributing so much in economic impact? Why are we giving so much back to our communities, and yet we're operating at such low margins? I think there's power in thinking about this again as an opportunity and an action item when we leave here today. Quickly looking at South Carolina stats, we won't go as in-depth, so apologies if you're from South Carolina. But again, you can dig into these numbers at stateoflive.org. Oh, okay, let's pause in South Carolina and say that I think South Carolina's economic output was about half of North Carolina's, which is $1.1 billion in 2024. Billions and millions, these are really huge numbers, again, that are tricky to contextualize and understand in terms of everyday life. But I would just say, if you're ever plunging a toilet in your independent stage, if you're ever walking a staff member through a really troubling issue, if people are showing up to your doors with tickets that were fake or speculative, and you're thinking, why did I get into this industry? I want you to look at that B, 1.1 billion in just South Carolina in just 2024. These are huge metrics that show that every single person in this room, every single person that represents the independent live sector is just one tiny portion of a large wheel that's basically mobilizing a large part of the United States' economy. And then another metric to pull out from South Carolina that you'll see reflected in the rest of the state's reports. South Carolina, it served more than 2.2 million fans in 2024. That's just 1 year and over 2.2 million fans just in independently owned and operated stages. This is no conglomerate venues. These are no corporate venues that we're studying in this entire report. So again, go to stateoflive.org at the end of this presentation, at the end of our panel, explore South Carolina, explore North Carolina, see how it basically relates to other reports, and see how it relates to other sectors. I find that those types of comparisons are really important with decision makers. Okay, what's next? So, NIVA and the people who put this report, we're not expecting you to take this report and then do nothing with it. This is not a pamphlet that's just gonna go in the trash. This is the start of an advocacy initiative across the country. These numbers are free. These economic impact stats are yours, and they're for the public to use for whatever the independent live sector is going through at the local, state, and national level. We've already had these statistics used in Portland, Maine, when a venue owner was basically losing the specific bid. We have had these metrics be used for grant reports in Ohio and Missouri. So far, these metrics are for you, and they're supposed to be make them work to what you're going through at that specific time. So there's a toolkit online at stateoflive.org. You can explore your state. My coworker Maya put together this very pretty map that you can click on, and it opens up your state below. We have an advocacy toolkit as well. We also have a tool online where if you input your address, your name, and your zip code, it basically populates who are my mayors, who are my legislators at the state level, at the local level, at the federal level. You can customize that message with your metrics from this website, and it will immediately send that message to local, state, and federal legislators. Again, the goal is to cram their inbox and force them to look at these amazing, amazing metrics that you all are making happen across the country. What else do we have? So, again, long-term, from our perspective, what are the goals of this study? There are a number of initiatives that are happening across the country with this type of data and relying on the work of some really, really amazing independent owners and operators in different states. We, as a sector, are developing and passing liquor tax rebate bills for independent stages. In Texas and Tennessee, they've already passed bills that essentially create rebates and alcohol rebates for independent live venues, because they know, again, how much economic impact work these stages are creating, and they're rewarding that work and valuing the culture and the economic impact of our sector. To pull out another one, economic data to advance comprehensive ticketing reform. Again, predatory resellers are siphoning money away from the independent live sector every single day. They're doing it professionally, and they have basically no agenda to stop what they're doing. The independent live sector is fighting back against this. There's work being done, and metrics like these can be used to empower this data and take back some of that money, and basically develop relationships with fans, develop relationships with legislators to say, this is not working, this doesn't represent our community, here's what's actually representing our community, here's what economic force we're putting back into the economy. And the last thing I'll highlight from this list is that, again, independent owners, operators, festival owners, staff members are some of the most competent people I've ever encountered. To put on a show, you have to have 12 million things going on in your brain at the exact same time. You know what that prepares you really well for? Legislative bodies, believe it or not. Every single person in this room and across the country that works in these independent stages is already prepared to sit on boards, to sit on election committees, to actually take some proactive action in making decisions across the country, and again, not being reactive to some of these forces and some of these bills that we're up against. I probably talked 5 times faster than I'm supposed to, so I might be early. But please scan the QR code above. I'll step out of the way. This will take you to stateoflive.org. And there you can explore, again, more metrics for North Carolina, more metrics for South Carolina. You can dig into that toolkit. You can write an op-ed if you want. There's a guide there. And you can reach out to your legislators. Again, this is finally giving us the power to fight back to what's happening as a sector. It's representing us as people, as really hard workers, as cultural anchors in our community. And again, it's just the first step of many to amplifying the independent live sector and sustaining it for years and years to come. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions. Okay. Yes, I'll start over here.
Sorry, the profitability, how is that reported? Like, is that just on a venue owner and I'm saying, yeah, I'm profitable, or no, I'm not? Or is that like accounting practices? How is that reported?
Good question. So he's asking about the profitability and how it's reported. If you go to our national report at stateoflive.org, there's 4 ways that independent stages could identify themselves. We did not ask, although we did ask for specific numbers, not everyone was willing to give those to us, and that's completely fine. We did rely on the self-reported profitability. We are relying on the fact that this is anonymous. No one's going to point a finger at a venue owner and say, haha, you're not profitable. It's never going to go back to them. But there were 4 metrics. It was, I don't want to butcher it, but it was something along the lines of profitable but worried about the future, profitable and doing just fine, unprofitable but not so worried about the future, unprofitable and really struggling in that we might close soon. So there was 4 key metrics that people could self-identify as. Yep.
What's the definition of a stage?
Good question. So this is a very inclusive study. So he asked what the definition of an independent live stage was. If you put on live performance in any way across the country, and if you sell tickets, you were eligible for this survey. So that is independent festivals, independent promoters, and we did a calculation to basically not double count promoters across venues. That's comedy clubs, that's nonprofit PACs and nonprofit theaters. The definition was pretty large because we wanted to make sure we could include as many people as possible that were making this economic impression across the country.
Is that up to a certain threshold of capacity?
Nope, it was not defined by capacity. We spent many weeks picking through specific stages with our economists and identifying, is this person independently owned and operated, or are they owned by a conglomerate, by a multi-state conglomerate, or by a corporation? If they were completely discounted from the study. Again, this is just the independence of the world. Yep.
Is there any numbers on demographics of like attendees, because some people say, the younger generations are a little less social.
Right.
Because they grew up with the computers.
Right.
And they interact more on them. So is that anywhere encapsulated in data demographics?
Good question. Apologies on behalf of my entire generation for not going out and getting a beer here and there. I'm working on it. I'll say no. Frankly, this study is specifically designed to assess economic contribution and economic health or vitality. So we do have in the operational challenges, one of the key ones, I think it was like either number 9 or 10, was decreasing alcohol sales. That's a perfect example of what every single stage across the country is experiencing and feeling, which is that people aren't drinking like they used to. Again, the reporting mechanism for the survey was already pretty lengthy to begin with, and we were trying to make it as accessible as possible. But this is just the first. Who knows if we're able to do this as years come, and we have hopefully now a little bit more credibility in saying we're not going to sell your data. We're using this for our own preservation, and yeah, we're hoping to get more answers in the future. Yeah. That is a great question. It sounds off, right? But I don't know, how many of you are independent owners and operators? Okay, so there are different business models. I'm not an independent owner and operator, so I encourage you to chat with them and see certain circumstances in which this is possible. But a number of factors go into independent stage's business model, from alcohol sales, food sales, there's a whole merch sales thing, there's also ticket sales, which again is being hurt by the predatory resale practices that are happening right now. And then there's deals that people make with artists. There's all a number of factors that make up their bottom line. And unfortunately, what this is reflecting is it's not working. Whatever bottom line, whatever addition and subtraction is happening to try to make these stages profitable, it's not happening for the largest portion across the country. Again, we're the Independent Venue Association, so we couldn't say this is exactly the best business practices and this is exactly the worst business practice, but I'm sure if you chat with real owners and operators, you'll see that there's money being siphoned to other corners of the industry that's not going into their pocket.
I think that's a great opportunity to segue the second half of this. First of all, give Kendall a round of applause. We really appreciate her being here. We're going to invite Josh Wittman from Motorco Music Venue up here, and Dr. Cicely Mitchell as well. If you both would join us up here, they're regional venue operators and promoters that we can actually dive into some of these impacts and points of struggle. Do you want to stay up here, Kendall? You're welcome to.
Sure. Somebody's supposed to, I don't care.
It's up to you.
Okay.
I think it'd be good to have your perspective.
Josh, I'm gonna give you that one right there, buddy.
I'll give you that in case. My name's Taylor Winchester. I am involved with Confluence, and I have worked in several facets of the music industry, but today I'm just here to moderate this conversation. So quickly introducing our guest panelist here. We've got Dr. Cicely Mitchell, who is a cultural badass, and she has data to prove it. She's the co-founder of the original Art of Cool project, a 501c3 jazz presenting nonprofit organization in Durham. She's also the former artistic director of Summer Stage at Golden Belt, an outdoor stage, a budding high wire brewery, and former creative director for jazz programming at the Bayou Cafe. Did I say Bayou Cafe properly?
It's BU.
BU.
Yes.
That makes more sense. Thank you for being here. And then we have Josh Wittman, who actually also happens to be from Durham, but from Motorco Music Hall. He spent more than 30 years in the music industry, starting as a rep in college at CBS Records. I didn't know that. But today he is a partner of Motorco Music Hall in Durham, one of the region's most vibrant venues. And beyond Motorco, he also owns several bars and restaurants in the Durham area. So I think he'll be able to speak in conjunction to the economic impact that Kendall was referring to as well. So to start, Dr. Mitchell, let's start with you. After hearing all of these statistics, I would love just to kind of get a feel or a sense of what you're feeling and maybe how that relates to your experience as a promoter in recent months and years.
So seeing this for the first time, I will say, I know it sounds weird, it feels kind of comforting, only because I have a music venue in downtown Durham called Missy Lane's Assembly Room. We started January of last year. And so it's a jazz venue, but it also we do, sell alcohol and food and stuff like that. And so with any small business, you hear about the first 5 years, you're not going to turn a profit or what have you. And I'm a statistician by trade. So I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, just like how I think Daniel asked, like we're bringing a lot of money in, but it's a lot of money going out, right? If anybody has presented jazz musicians, they're pretty expensive, especially if you're getting the top of the top trying to tour through. And so it felt a little comforting because it said pretty much 2 out of 3 people that are like Missy Lane's are finding it hard to do the thing, like break even. And so at first, you're sitting behind your desk and you're looking at the numbers and you're thinking you're the only one not making it, right? We're the youngest music venue in Durham. And so, we were just trying to figure out, like, is it us or, what's going on? So I will say, seeing that, as a statistician made me feel like, okay, we're doing, I guess, what everyone else is doing. But there are a few things as a statistician we are trying to do to hit those 10 things that are making it hard to make a profit. So.
Yeah, thanks for that insight. And I think a key point to point out on that is that the numbers is that Kendall was speaking to is revenue generated. So that doesn't mean that the venue is keeping all of that. To your point, you know, there's a lot of costs that go into producing a show. There's obviously product costs in the F&B side of things. So there's a lot more than I think sometimes the average music fan realizes that goes into producing a show and putting on a show. Josh, same thing. What do you see up there here? And I know we've talked at many NIVA conferences about some of these issues, but what are you feeling coming out of hearing the report? And then also, how does it, you know, how do you see that translating in your business directly?
The numbers make me proud. I mean, if there's, you know, since there's no profitability, I've got to have a legacy of some sort. So maybe that's it right there. No, I mean, don't do this if you don't love it, right? I mean, you're not opening a music venue to make money. You love it because of the community it brings. You love it to expose people to music. You love it because it's just a fun, energetic place. It is a business, and you have to figure out how that works. And there's a lot of those top 10 reasons are hitting the nail on the head. I mean, you know, coming out of COVID, I mean, we don't need to go through how terrible that was for music venues, but for all hospitality businesses in general. But I just have to give a shout out to NIVA, because without COVID, NIVA wouldn't have happened, and we wouldn't have the voice that we now have. We wouldn't have all the good work that is happening at NIVA to help us survive, and there would have been a lot more of us disappearing via COVID if we didn't have the Save Our Stages grant. And, you know, that was huge, of course, but even if that didn't happen, just having a voice and having a shitload of intelligent people at NIVA helping us conduct business, it feels like a wonderful spot to be. And, you know, just wanted to give a shout out.
Thanks. Shout out to the people that came before me as well at NIVA. Really awesome, smart people.
Thanks for that, Josh. So transitioning a little bit, thinking about some of those challenges, I know that Kendall touched on it, but what are you all seeing in terms of trends in ticket sales? I don't know if you're paying attention demographically speaking to the question here in terms of ages, but what are you all seeing maybe this year compared to years past? I know COVID, and coming right out of COVID, I often heard that there was a pretty big influx in terms of people getting out, attending shows, but have you seen a drop off? What are you seeing in terms of trends in ticket sales, and how does it impact your business?
I would say what I'm seeing is very spiky sales, an up and a down rather than a consistent across the middle average. So lots of sellouts, but also lots of soft shows, and very little in the middle. If you look at an average Motorco show, there's zero walk-up nowadays. I mean, when I was going to shows in the 80s and 90s, in the 90s, when I was going to show in the 90s, you were walking up. You were going out and discovering what's out there. Now people are making a definitive choice about what shows they're going to. You've got full access to every piece of music out on Spotify, Apple Music, etc. Back in the day, you either had to buy the LP or you had to wait for the radio station to play it, and that's how you heard the music. And so you were able to take a lot more chances. I think nowadays people are making definitive choices. There's a lot less casual attendance, but that's also because ticket prices are higher. So people have to allocate their funds accordingly. We are seeing a lot of young people come into shows, and we're talking young as in under 21, so they're not drinking anyways. But I'm encouraged, at least, that there is a new group of folks that will want to come to live music once they turn 21. And that's great. I mean, even last week we had a sold-out show, and I was pulling the email list to send out a VIP message, and I got an alert that none of the people on the VIP list were on our mailing list. And that's, that's a 15-year-old mailing list. That means none of these people have ever come to our venue and or gotten an email from us. So I was encouraged. First I was flabbergasted, but then I was encouraged. So vibrant, I think. I think that people, based on their feeling about money and what's coming in the future, is always going to influence their choices. But October, we have 3 empty days in October. So we're in the middle of it, and we'll see at the end of it how that profitability looks.
Well, thanks for being here in the middle of it.
I wanted to add, I've seen this, so back in the day when I did Art of Cool, which was just being a promoter and doing pop-up shows, the trend line has always been, soon as we announce, spike up, and then people are watching, and then maybe 72 to 48 hours before the show, then spike up. So my trend, except for one festival, which was Biscuits and Banjos, which I produced this year for Rhiannon Giddens, has always gone in a U shape, even at my venue. We have Madison McFerrin, which is Bobby McFerrin's daughter. She's a sellout for Friday, and her line was a little different, only because she was on Tyler, the Creator's album, and as soon as Tyler said something about her, it literally, from that day and time, took off. So one thing we're learning is that a lot of people are checking people out just on clout or name recognition, because a lot of jazz musicians, people, if you say, oh, I love jazz, and I ask you, you might say, oh, I love Miles Davis or John Coltrane or people who have passed on. And so a lot of people don't have a point of reference on who's who. But if someone that is very popular, like Tyler, the Creator, says, oh yeah, Madison McFerrin was on this, literally everything took off from there. As far as like jazz, I've been on this crusade for about 15 years to expand the audience for jazz. And so we try to put jazz in front of people without really hitting them over the head with jazz. And so we do find that it is like a 30 and up type of crowd. But we do present kind of on the fringes of jazz so that we do see some younger audience come through. So like someone like a Madison does really well. We're near Duke University and North Carolina Central, and so we try to partner up with those radio stations as well as those presenters over there, the performing arts centers there. So the only other trend that I've seen where it was like sold out in, I think, 6 weeks of announcement would be Miss Rhiannon Giddens festival. Never put on a festival that has seen like tickets sell out in 6 weeks, and we're chasing like corporate sponsors. Like usually the corporate money comes in first, and then you're waiting until the very last minute, and then the ticket sales come in. It was in reverse that time, and I believe it was just, it's Rhiannon.
She's a new artist?
Right. It was Rhiannon. And
Yeah,
so I
that's
had
pretty
never
awesome.
been in that situation, which was a great situation to be in. But I feel like it's a unicorn. It probably, will only happen for Rhiannon.
Well, no, I mean, that's awesome. And I heard it was a great festival. The only other thing about sellouts and ticketing and, the only other trend I've been noticing is if a show sells out quickly and hard, it usually means that the tickets are in some nefarious hands. If it sells out slowly a week before the show, it means that you're probably going to have less of a drop count in attendance. Obviously, the drop count thing is, it was a post-COVID, that just means how many people didn't show up that bought tickets. It's been a problem since. We're talking 20% of people not showing up, which is a significant amount when you're talking about bar sales and or I wish I could resell those tickets. But so that's another trend that I think is, at least from what I hear, is nationwide. And again, we don't know how many of those things are because it's, those ticket bots couldn't resell those tickets or what.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I do want to be mindful to save some time for questions too here, but I was talking to owner-operator of Petra's for you folks here from Charlotte, which is, I think, historically much of a walk-up crowd. That's more of a small venue, not typically selling a ton of tickets in advance. He's having the same issue. He's saying we've sold out shows in advance online, and then half of our capacity is here. So I want to ask you both, like, how does that impact your revenue potential and your profitability potential, in the sense that I think for folks that maybe don't work in the industry, you don't necessarily recognize how much of the ticket price actually goes to the artist, and then obviously the overhead and cost of operating a show. So where do you make your money? And how does that impact if your drop count or you sell 100 tickets and only 50 people show up? How does that impact your bottom line?
Well, it definitely impacts. I mean, it's a direct impact to our bottom line. The way we build our shows, ticket sales is marketing for us. Ticketing is about getting people in the doors, and then everything that we do F&B is the profit. And that's just by, helping at BU Cafe at first and seeing how things were going with him. And then now with my own venue, we try to toe the line on music and ticketing, not expecting much profit there, but then getting people in the doors, having them get that second, third drink, upselling on appetizers, desserts, that sort of thing. That's where our money is. We don't really expect a lot of profit on the ticketing portion.
I was going to say it's probably the same for you, Josh, but any additional points there?
100% the same. I mean, you don't expect any money from ticketing or the artist. It's all about how many bodies get in the door and how much they're going to drink. I mean, going to the drinking situation, I obviously have other bars and the beer drinking and the alcohol drinking. I think something like 60% of the population doesn't drink anymore, which is a huge number. I mean, we're selling more CBD drinks. We're selling more, NA cocktails, NA beers. So, I mean, there is some replacement there. But I also think there are some folks that won't want to go into social situations if they're drinking for a health reason or not drinking for a health reason. So again, whatever those things are, I mean, yes, going back to the drop counts, if we're missing, 80 people in the room or 60 to 80 people in the room, that could mean, a loss of $1,000 to $1,500 in bar sales. And that's only, one or two drinks. And we aren't a venue that is, doing the Live Nation beverage pricing.
You're not selling $20 cocktails?
No, 19.
Okay.
No, we don't do that. There are some venues in our area that have significantly raised the price of the cocktails and the beers to a level that I'll still buy one, but I might not have 3 or 4. So it is part of the business model that whether, your consumers can stomach it is something to look at as far as just kind of getting into venue pricing. We have a restaurant as well. So, I mean, obviously that causes issues if we have beers that are priced $14 next door and beers that are $7 there. You can always just go to the $7 beer stand. But it absolutely, and I mean, all the beer costs have gone up, all the alcohol costs have gone up. Everything just keeps going up. Insurance costs 20% every year. It goes up. I mean, NIVA's been working on that, trying to help venues keep those costs down. But, all these insurance companies that are, selling us liquor liability, they are making it cost a lot.
Yeah, I know that South Carolina particularly has a big issue with insurance and bars specifically, but venues. We've only got a few minutes left, and there's a lot that we could continue to go into. So, but I do want to ask if anybody has any questions for our venue operators. Go ahead, Glenn.
I'm sorry, it's a question for Kendall.
Kendall will answer questions too. Go ahead.
Regarding the venues, 62% losing money, and I know the information was anonymized. Do you know that by venue size or stage level where it's more profitable?
Hopefully this is on. Short answer, no. That's another type of thing that we would like to get more breakdowns by capacity and venue size if we do this study again. But I think I wouldn't want to release those numbers because we want to make sure that those profitability numbers are accurate and that we received enough information from the stages. You'll see when you look on the reports, not every single state has a profitability number, and that's because we didn't get enough responses in those states about financial health from year to year. But again, that would definitely be a goal for the future.
Just to highlight, I mean, I wanted to just make sure everybody in this room knows that this study was exhaustive. Like, it took us an hour plus to fill out the questionnaire and to pull all the numbers. So I mean, this is legit. And I mean, again, like I said, I'm proud of it. This is the first time I'm seeing the North Carolina only numbers, which I happen to have a girlfriend that works in the state legislature, so I'm going to make sure that she takes this to the people upstairs. I just want to be clear that this was not just a simple multiple choice kind of thing. So there are really legit numbers, and as we talk about ways to use those numbers in our state to improve our businesses and to make sure that all of our cultural outlets survive, especially with the politicians killing a lot of the arts funding, it's even more important that we have these numbers and that we can use them for good.
Yeah, 100% agree. Go ahead.
AI is competing now in songwriting and all the other technology things. I mean, for the musician, for the venue, for all this stuff, God bless you for what you're doing. But, the human experience, that is what's valuable, right? Because, you could sit down with an AI program tune and if you wanted to, write 50 to 100 songs a day. I mean, it could be that fast.
Mine still suck, though. I haven't figured it out.
But, I mean, how do you enhance the human experience, right? Because and obviously, being both venue owners and operators, it's all about the human experience. And I just think with the whole AI thing, gosh, we need to figure that out, right?
I think we're all wired for human connection. And most of the people who come out to Missy Lanes and even the Missy Lanes block party, which we just finished, they're seeking that. So I've been coming up with like this tagline. I know it sounds weird. It's live music in real life, right? And I know that's like crazy, but that's what we present, an experience that you won't be able to get anywhere else, at least not close to Missy Lanes. If you flew to Blue Note in New York or LA, then you would, but it's the exact same that you would get at the Blue Note, New York, in real life. Like, you can get that close to Kenny Garrett or that close to Chief Adjoa, and that's what we're building at Missy Lanes, is human connection, live music in real life. You can listen to an AI track all you want, but it's something about being at the foot of, these musicians that are improvising. You can even hear that same song on Spotify or whatever, but Chief Adjoa is not going to play it the exact same. And we normally do 2 shows a night, for multiple nights, and he may have the same set list, but it's not going to be the exact same. And that's what we try to connect to people when we're showing the recap or we're showing, what's happening at the club, is really trying to pull at, that we're wired for human connection and we want to have that experience.
I'm sorry we're out of time, and they've keeping me on a strict leash with that. But please stick around and ask these folks. Thank you again to everybody for being here. Thank you to Kendall for presenting. Check out stateoflive.org. If anything, a takeaway is tell your local politicians and lobby on behalf of these presenters, promoters, venues, and support them as much as possible. But thank you all for being here. Thank you to our panelists as well.